Hello everyone and greetings from Tenerife. So this film is all about cleanse and build, and I want to acknowledge a great debt of gratitude to my sister Linda, because she was the one that put this phrase into my head, and it's such helpful information. So I'm going to take you on a little walk now and explain what I mean about cleanse and build. So we're just doing a little handover of the camera, and you can just get a little bit of a view of where it is that we're staying. Thank you very much, lovely. So off we go for a walk. So what's brought this up is I saw a post on Facebook today, and it was someone that was very excited and celebrating their recent discoveries about food and diet and what works for them, which is always good. And it really brought up this thing about cleanse and build. In fact, this is someone who came to one of my retreats some years ago now. And when you're doing a retreat working with the plant medicines, essentially what you're doing is you are on a diet to cleanse. So the idea of a cleansing diet is pretty much exactly what you expect, really. It's the idea that what you're eating is specifically designed to help you to cleanse your body, and every other aspect of yourself as well come to that. And so a typical cleansing diet would be one that would be favouring alkaline over acid, and it would be favouring plants over animals. So people do the plant diet for working with plant medicines. That's what they're focusing on. They're eating lots of fresh vegetables and fruits, and they're eating minimal amounts of animal food and less in the way of carbs, no refined sugar, no caffeinated drinks, no alcohol, all that kind of stuff. So we're very familiar with that. Now the other extreme is the people that need to build. And when a person needs to build, that is because they've most likely been through a cleansing phase in their lives. And what happens when you've cleansed and cleansed and cleansed to a certain point, the body really demands that you change direction. So what's happening is a lot of people are very unconscious about this process, and so what happens for them is that I'll give you this simple classic example, which is a person is brought up on, say, a meat diet. They eat lots of meat, other animal foods, cheeses and all the rest of it, and there comes a point when they realise on a level of intuition that the body is oversaturated with all this heavy food. It's probably overly acidic. So in a situation like that, what's very likely is a person's going to be inclined towards becoming a vegetarian or a vegan. And what they're doing is they're switching from a building diet to a cleansing diet. So it's a very common thing. Now what's brought this up to my awareness is my partner's experience being a vegan and also not being a vegan. And because of her interest in the subject and watching lots of YouTube films, what she's done is she's listened to a lot of other people speaking about this, and there's a common trend going on at the moment on YouTube. That's a lot of vegans suddenly and abruptly stopping being a vegan and are starting to go for eating animal food, and in some cases they even go the full hog and go for the carnivore diet, whereby they end up eating entirely meat. So really what this film is about is to explain that there's nothing wrong with any of these approaches, because it's all really a significator of actually where you are at the time. So if a person is showing great enthusiasm about a cleansing diet, then they might indeed go online and make lots of films and talk about how wonderful it is, and they can get so carried away that they can think that that's what everybody needs to do. Everyone must become a vegan. Everyone must eat a plant-based alkaline diet. Well, really, that is appropriate and applicable for all those people who are like them. In other words, they've been doing too much building in the past, too much animal food, and so they would be very inclined to listen to that message with great enthusiasm, and it's like, yeah, I want to do that. And this is fine so long as you realise that you're just going through a phase. Literally, in this case, you'd be going into a cleansing phase, having been in a building phase beforehand. So if you stop being unconscious about it and start being consciously aware, this is really helpful. So you can go even more into cleansing than simply doing a plant-based alkaline diet. You can do things like colon cleanse, liver cleanse, kidney cleanse. And this is where you've got to be really careful, because when you go for an experience as profound and as strong as that, then this is where my sister's advice really comes in. If a person's been doing some cleansing with a colon, with a liver, with kidneys, it's really important after you've done your cleanse to start to build and to take on foods which allow you to build up your strength. And the thing that really gives me the authority to talk about all this, I'm just enjoying these goats here, lovely to see them. So, and there's some donkeys as well. So the thing that gives me the authority to say this is I've been one of these foolish people that has actually spent much too long cleansing. It was an inevitable consequence of becoming retreat host, especially a successful one hosting lots of retreats, because what this meant is that more and more of my time was spent on a cleansing diet and less of my time was spent building myself up. So I learnt the hard way that if you only cleanse and not build, that can really cause you some problems. So my suggestion is to become mindful about where you are on your trajectory when it comes to what you're choosing to put inside your body, and to realise that, especially if you've got any signs of overweight, a cleansing diet might be a really good idea. But what I'd advise you to do is to be aware that if you're on a cleansing diet, that's not a permanent thing. And this is really the core of my message to you in this film, is to realise that neither diet is right or wrong per se. It's a matter of what you're attuned to and what you require at the time. And to realise that, yes, you might even want to become a strict raw vegan, for example. You might even want to do that for a while. But to be aware when you start to get the signs that that's no longer suitable. I remember meeting a raw vegan in a place called Middlewood in North Lancashire some years ago. And she was so unhappy, because basically she was living from an image of perfection about what she should be doing, and her body hated the way she was being. It was suffering so badly because it was basically deprived of the essential nutrients that she required to enable to live a decent life. And I'm sure she would eventually have woken up to this fact and started to switch from a cleansing diet to a building diet, and then her problems would have been solved. So what's a much easier thing to do is to be consciously aware of where you're at on your trajectory in life when it comes to what you're eating and drinking, and to be aware that it's a good idea to be flexible and to do what my sister advised, which is cleanse and build, cleanse and build. And in the distance there's Tenerife North Airport, which I just happened to notice an airplane landing on, and we're out here in the lovely nature just outside of the town of La Laguna up in the north. It's beautiful here. Now, I had a really strong experience of a building diet yesterday because I was taken out to lunch to have a typical Canary Island food, and wow, what a shock, because there was the fish soup which I didn't have, but then there were some little tiny shrimps which I did have, and then the main course arrived, and I kid you not, compared with what I'm used to in England, it was like enough fish for about 3 people. Absolutely amazing quantity. So the people that live here are very much on the building diet. That's part of their tradition, is to build themselves up, make themselves very strong so they can do whatever it is that they need to do. And that's another thing, you see. If you're on a cleansing diet, don't expect to be too strong. And I used to witness this many times when I worked for an organisation called Green and Away. And what we did is we arrived at an empty field, and we set the whole field up as a tented conference centre. making yurts, marquees and all sorts of other structures. And when we got people to help us as volunteers who were vegan, it became really obvious they just didn't have the strength that other people had. And in fact, the organisation had very much of a thing about vegetarian diet, because if you're outside in the field, health and hygiene issues around things like meat and fish are much more difficult to manage, especially if you've got no refrigeration. So that's why we went for the vegetarian diet. That seemed to work very well. So at different times in your life, you'll be finding yourself attracted to different ways of eating, and that's really great. And so flexibility is the key. But remember, if you do any serious deep cleansing, and if you've been working on retreats of plant medicines, there's going to come you need to really be aware of this. It'll be time to stop cleansing and begin building again. And that's a little eucalyptus grove which is being felled at the moment. So thank you very much.